What's up, everyone? Jason Brown here, the king of programming. We're back for another program review. This one is unlike any I have done in the past. And I think that when I first thought about this idea, this program review, I was really unsure how it would go, what it would look like. And now that I've done it, I'm actually surprised from multiple perspectives. And I'm gonna get into what that means and why that's very relevant, especially to people that are coaches out there. If you're an online coach or even an in-person coach, I think that you're gonna wanna stick around and watch this video because it's really, really telling, especially where the future of this online world and all these things that we have coming out. So without further ado, I went on to ChatGPT and I had it write me a full body program, 5 days of strength training and conditioning. Now that's it, that's all I put in the prompt. Write me a 5-day training program, full body training plus conditioning, and I wanted to see what it spit out to me. And I actually thought that it was gonna take a little bit more work to dial in what I was expecting, and it didn't. It was that easy. I put that in, and that's what I got out. And actually, I was very surprised on what came out after I put that prompt in and looking at the program. So, first and foremost, I am going to put this program, the copy of it, in the show notes so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. I'm not even sure if by the time this video comes out, if I'm gonna actually put this on the screen, a screen recording of it like I usually do with reviews. I think you guys being able to see this in its entirety is gonna be, I guess, important, but probably telling to the quality of the program. Not to give away whether or not this is an approved or a rejected program, but this the overall quality of it. I want you guys to be able to see that, from beginning to end. So without further ado, let's get into this. Now, the first thing I wanna say, that after I saw this, I thought, wow, I'm surprised by the level of quality, the attention to detail. I've done a lot of reviews in the Playbook app. Some of you guys have probably seen them. If you haven't seen them, check them out. By and large, the Playbook app is terrible for programs. Terrible. I have seen so many terrible programs, and I've been actually looking through that app recently to find more programs to review. I actually found a few that many of you have mentioned, a few different people that you have mentioned, and I've looked at the programs, and I'll be honest with you guys, I thought to myself, I don't even know what the I'm looking at. How am I gonna review this? There's just a hodgepodge of and to be completely honest, I look at some of that stuff and I'm like, is there something I don't know? I've been doing this stuff for 20 years. Maybe there's something that I don't know. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I look at some of these things and I'm like, I don't even know what the I'm looking at. So what am I reviewing? But needless to say, when I looked at this ChatGPT program, and again, just put in that very simple prompt, I was really surprised with the quality, the attention to detail. And if I had to put this against the majority of programs that I have seen to date in the Playbook app, I would say this is a better program, which is crazy because you can get this for free. You can get this right now. You don't have to pay for anything. Go on there and get this right now. So I think that the overall message here, if you don't watch any more of this video, the overall message is that if you're a coach, you better get your together and start writing better programs. Because I can just go on ChatGPT and get a better program than anything in the Playbook app, at least anything that I've seen. For you guys, your haters out there are probably like, oh, well, this program's good, this program good. Yes, but for the majority of the things I've seen, it's just like a complete pile of steamy. This program definitely has some things that I'm gonna pick apart, but I think overall, just gonna leave it there. So let's get into what's here. This is, again, to refresh your memory, full body training, 5 sessions, and usually when I look at programs in any app for that matter, I'm looking at across a week. Sometimes I peek forward to see if there's any kind of repetition or we're doing the same things or is it just like all over the place week to week? And sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not, but needless to say, I'm looking at 5 days here. And again, you can look at this in the show notes. So let's go through day 1, strength and power. And I'm gonna get into whether or not that's an accurate depiction of actual what this session is. But you've got a 10-minute warm-up, and it is pretty concise, it's pretty detailed. And again, I'm not here to look at the actual warm-ups, but if we look at just the overall semblance of the session, it's pretty good, it's pretty dialed in. Our workout itself, we've got 5 exercises, which if some of you recall, some of our reviews is just like 10, 12 exercises. You're like, what the f? Like, what am I doing? Do I have 2 hours to train? Probably not. And not only that, the question is can you put in the effort across 10 to 12 exercises? If you're training with any level of intensity, that is too many exercises. I know it's more anecdotal, but 20 years doing this, I have found the sweet spot to be 4 to 6 exercises, usually more towards 6, 5 to 6. But certainly if we're doing some big stuff, some heavy compound movements, some power work, we can certainly lean more on the 4 exercise side and have it go really, really well. Some of my best sessions have had 4 exercises. Back when I'm using a classic conjugate split, doing something like a heavy deadlift, a heavy rack pull deadlift, some glute ham raises, some single leg work, some abdominal work. I mean, 4 exercises, I mean, that is an incredibly taxing session. And if done right, can be very, very effective, especially within the confines of that particular training split. So this session itself is made up of push-up pattern, a squat pattern, a bent over row, a single leg RDL, and then some push-up to plank. So plank to push-up, basically anti-extension movement. And overall, we've checked all our boxes. This is a full body day. We've got a pressing pattern, we got an upper pull, we got a hinge, we got a squat, and it's doing 1 exercise at a time. Now, there are no rest intervals, but I'm wondering if I asked it to put in the rest intervals, would it have put those rest intervals in? I don't know, and I actually kind of just wanted to make this as simple as possible. So I didn't go back and prompt it multiple times, and I'm sure we could probably get it to do that if we wanted to, but there are no rest intervals. Now, the programming itself, 4 sets across all exercises. The question is whether or not we can get it done with less. I am always looking for a minimal effective dose, and I would say that yes, we probably could get it done with less, and we could probably have a little bit more diversity across these rep schemes. We've got 4 sets of 10 to 15, 4 sets of 12, 4 sets of 12, 4 sets of 10, 4 sets of 10. So I do think that 40 total reps as a whole can work particularly well for specific movements. And I think in this case, it's not far off from where I would have it. But if I was to kind of touch up this session, if you will, and I think what I'm about to say will make more sense once you see how this plays out across the week, I would probably go with some bigger patterns for my pressing. And I think that's based on how this week is structured, having some barbell work would probably be a good fit here, and probably going with something like a 5x5, if you will. Goblet squat, I think, is particularly fine. But, you know, again, in the confines of this program, would it make sense to have a bigger pattern like something like a front squat? Maybe. And I do think, again, rest intervals and a little bit more diversity across rep schemes. We know that, you know, single leg RDLs, 4 sets of 10 per leg. Yes, we can do that. I think we would probably be better off going a little bit lower, maybe cranking that loading up a little bit. And again, what I'm saying now, as far as maybe having this be our heavy day of the week, will make more sense once you see how the rest of this program plays out, which I have already looked at, which is not something I usually do. So that's day 1. Again, overall, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I'm pretty surprised. I think that it checks the boxes being full body. You know, again, if you're working with someone, or maybe this is just kind of a general program, someone that we don't really know a whole lot about them and their skill level, I think this will check a lot of boxes. If you were just like kind of think about the average person, this will do really, really well for them. And I don't think it needs to be any more complex than how it's listed here. So again, kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is, but if you're a coach and you're watching this and you don't write a program better than this, you better get with the program, because people can get this stuff now, all right? And I think more and more people are probably gonna see this video. So anyways, without further ado, let's keep moving on. And it does have a cool down at the end, which is something that I use. I use some breathing exercises to drive the parasympathetic nervous system and kind of facilitate the recovery process. So that's something that's in there, which I like. Again, attention to detail is there, which is something that we see is missing in a lot of programs, where it's just, again, a lot of confusion, a lot of ambiguity. What am I going for? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it medium? Am I building in weight? Am I using one weight across all sets? How many reps in the tank? What's the RP? All those things are things that we should be thinking of. So day 2, conditioning and endurance. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, strength and power. Is this a strength and power day? I'd say it's more of a strength day. We don't have a whole lot of power development work in this day. So I think that's probably kind of just used loosely. But if we wanted this to be a power day, we could certainly start with some plyometric work, or even some speed strength work if you're proficient with things like the Olympic list. But I really like how general this day is. Now, day 2, conditioning and endurance. We've got it looks like for each day they use a 10-minute warm-up, which again is very concise. And then we've got 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off across 3 rounds of burpee, mountain climber, kettlebell swing, or alternative with a dumbbell, box jump or step up, and bicycle crunches. So if we think about this, we've got, obviously the burpee is, I think a lot of coaches, there's like the camp that hates burpees and like will never program burpees. There's people in CrossFit that obviously do burpees on a regular basis, probably even some of them doing them 2-3 times a week, which isn't something I'd recommend. I think the burpee for some people is perfectly fine, but it really depends on you in terms of if you have any type of lower back issues and you're going into a high amount of hip extension, especially in that bottom position where you're overextending, then that could be problematic. But if you don't have any issue with it, it is certainly a global pattern. You're going down to the floor and then getting up. So there is a lot of demand that is placed on the cardiovascular system just by virtue of having to do that. So again, not to sit here and go down the rabbit hole of burpees. I think it's fine for some people. I tend to lean on the no push-up version of the burpee where we avoid that overextended position where we are in at the bottom. And again, you get very much similar training effect. We're just skipping that one portion of it. Mountain climbers, again, you're still in a plank position, very similar. So I would like to see a little bit more squatting on this day. I think you could probably throw in some type of squat pattern if you wanted to make it a little bit more balanced instead of more hip hingy, if you will. But overall, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this session. It does fit into what we're trying to do, and I like that there is some aerobic conditioning. This would be very much an aerobic style workout by virtue of just having only a 15-second rest, not really rest, but kind of just more transition. And I think, again, this is a perfectly fine day of training. It's very simple, not a whole lot of moving parts to it. So I think it'll be easy for someone to navigate, especially if they don't have a particularly high level of skill. And then we've got a cool down to culminate the day. If you are someone that is serious about training and you're looking for peak results year round without having to sacrifice your body, download my free programming sample. The link is in the comments. All right, so moving on to day 3, we've got an active recovery and mobility day. Overall, I like this day. It gives you some flexibility. You've got essentially yoga, walking, foam rolling, swimming. So it gives you some options of low intensity activities. What a novel idea that is, to do some low intensity work. We live in a stressed out society and we've got people just beating their heads against the wall, wondering why they're not getting results because they haven't done any work to, number one, I think, be real with what is actually going on in their lives. And I think that anytime we evaluate why someone isn't getting the results they're looking for with their program, there's a number of things to take into consideration. But any time we just look at this from kind of a broad scale view, it would be thinking about the world that we live in. What are people faced with? People are chronically stressed out. There's people that have just poor nutrition, sleep habits, managing stress, all those things. And then they get into this high intensity routine and it's like, they might get results out of the gate, but eventually those results stop. So I do think that this is an incredibly beneficial aspect of any program, is to have some low intensity measures. Now, I like that it gives you options. I think that they're okay options. For some of them, they might be like foam rolling for some people can be incredibly painful. So we want to be very much mindful of the fact that foam rolling can have a tremendous amount of benefits from a recovery standpoint. I am not someone that uses foam rolling to break down scar tissue or adhesions or anything like that. It doesn't, a foam roller won't do that, guys. So just remember that there are limits to things. But foam rolling is one of those things, if we do very lightly, can actually drive the parasympathetic nervous system, but it has to be non-painful and it has to be done in a way where you're maybe potentially removing some pressure to get it to do what we want it to do. Now, that's a whole topic for another day, but I think overall, I like the placement of this day. I like that we had, essentially 2 higher intensity days. This day number 2 was definitely a higher intensity aerobic day. It's not a particularly long workout. We've got essentially 60 seconds times 5, so 5 minutes per round, so a 15-minute workout. So definitely gonna be higher intensity aerobic workout. And obviously day 1 is gonna be higher intensity just by virtue of doing more strength exercises, more anaerobic in nature. So I like that this day is here. And again, so far, I'm pleasantly surprised with this program. So moving on. Day 4, functional strength. I think the word functional, and I will tell you guys, be completely transparent, I fell into the trap of like the functional strength. Training has become so much about marketing. I have never been good at marketing. I have always been someone that just like, hey, this is what it is. This is how I learned about things. This is what we're programming, if it's max effort upper body or it's aerobic conditioning. But we have become a society that is very much focused on how things look and they appear. And the word functional has been one of those words that's been thrown around now for a while. I think it's kind of on the tail end. I think functional is kind of coming to an end. I think a lot of people now are starting to make fun of it, and I can see that. But I will tell you that, what do you guys think about when you hear the word functional strength? Does that like turn on thoughts of something that's better or more effective? I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. But this day in and of itself is very similar to day 1. We've got a concise 10-minute warm-up, renegade row for our row pattern. We've got a lateral lunge, which is great because we're getting outside of the sagittal plane, doing some frontal plane work, which is something that we tend to see is low-hanging fruit and something that you don't see in a lot of programs these days. Overhead press, we got another single leg pattern and a Russian twist. So I think this day as a whole, number one, is missing a hinging pattern, which is it still full body? Yes. But could it benefit from it instead of 2 single leg? I would say probably yes. I think the rep schemes need to be a little bit more diverse. Do we need to do 4 sets for everything? Probably not. We can do 4 sets of 6 to 8. We can do 3 sets of 10 to 12, 3 sets of 12 to 15, maybe some higher rep work in there, have a little bit more diversity across our rep schemes. And obviously, if we can get into even looking at some things like muscle physiology, there is some guiding light there as well. Now, there are no rest intervals, which we know that those are important to have as well. I think you could use strategies like supersets, giant sets, all that stuff can potentially fit in here and have a place within this program. Renegade row for me is not a great row pattern. You're very much limited by your ability to stabilize and get into a plank position. So as far as loading capacity, not gonna be there. You're not gonna be able to load that as you would a particularly, like something like a one-arm row, you're gonna be able to load a lot heavier because you're not in a plank position. So renegade row for me is actually an exercise that I would use in a conditioning piece where I'm not focused as much on mechanical tension. I'm focused more on just kind of going through the motions and working on more stabilization at the interior core. But overall, I don't think it's a particularly bad day. And again, Playbook app, guys, this is better. Yeah, so I said it and I stand by it. So let's move on. Day number 5, we have a high intensity interval training day. So we have another interval style workout of 45 seconds work, 15 seconds rest, followed by a cool down. We've got jump squats, push-ups, kettlebell swings, plank to knee, taps, burpees, V-ups. All right, so now I'm starting to see some issues here. And I think that many of you are probably seeing the same issues. We've got repetition of the same patterns. We did burpees 2 days ago. We're doing burpees again. We did kettlebell swings 2 days ago. We're doing them again. We're doing kind of the same things as far as you know, if we look back on to day 2, bicycle crunch, we've got knee tucks. So they basically took that day, duplicated it, added a round, and made really the same thing, if you will, but a little bit different patterns and some of the patterns that do repeat. So I think that this day as a whole, I would probably just get rid of and I would go with something else. I think high intensity interval training as a whole, we could certainly fit that here and make it a good fit for this program, but I would go with different movements and I would probably go with a different work to rest ratio. Now, what that is, I don't know because I'm not writing this program, but I think overall, that's something I would include in this program. Now, you could go even a little bit different. You could go with some strongman style endurance, some loaded carries, which is not in this program, and have it play out pretty well too. So with that said, that's 5 days of this program. Let's do a quick recap of the pros and cons. So the pros of this program is that it is detailed. It is well organized. There is a very clear intent to each day. There is a structure of warm up, training, cool down. There is 2 strength days and 2 conditioning days and one low intensity day. As a whole, I think that's a pretty good split for most people. Is it the best split if you want to step on stage? Probably not. Is it the best split if you want to build strength and power? Probably not. But generally speaking, this is good for a lot of people. I would just probably go with a little bit different exercises. And I think that as a whole, across the board, you could probably get it done with 3 sets for all these exercises. And maybe we're gonna get a little bit more clear on RPE. How hard are those exercises going to be? If we're gonna do a goblet squat for 4 sets of 12, and that's 4 sets of 12 with the heaviest load that you can hold and do 12 reps with good technique, that might be a little bit more volume than we actually need. We could probably get it done with doing 3 sets. Again, what's the minimum effective dose, right? If 3 is enough, why do another one? And the question is when we get beyond that threshold, does the intensity go down? Do we have to go to a lower load because we're just trying to basically check a box and get the training done? Sometimes that happens where it's like, okay, my last set was close to failure and I don't think I can do the same weight for this next set. That's probably where you want to end. If you are on your 3rd and final set and you are near failure, you are checking a big box as far as getting close to failure and again, being able to really put the level of intensity in that you need to make gains. Now, there are times when we might want to go lower because we're having an off week or things are just high stress and you got a lot of things going on. I'm at a time of year right now, we have a lot going on with our kids. We've got different types of sporting, we got school starting, we got a holiday weekend coming up. Those are all things I take into consideration and I apply that to the program. Now you can get even more granular and look at things like heart rate variability score and use that. But I'm getting off topic now because what we're really thinking about here is that this is overall a very solid program. There's a lot of pros to this. Now the cons are that we've got some repetition of patterns. We don't have rest intervals. And I think, as a whole, there are some other strategies we can apply. But the overall thing here is the telling piece to this is that this ChatGPT wrote this program in seconds for me. And if any of you are watching this and you have a coach, maybe you have a high ticket coach that you pay a lot of money, you could probably get this on your own. Now, you don't get coaching, you don't get accountability, but I think that there are a lot of coaches out there that can't write a program as good as this. And that to me is concerning because I know I can tell you guys, look you in the face right now, tell you I can write a better program of this. And you should be able to do that too. And I think that, for those of you guys that are out there that are maybe subscribed, maybe you're subscribed to my training, I can tell you that my training is 100% better than this and not have to even think about it twice. But the overall kind of message I'm trying to get to you is that this is a pretty good program for little to no effort on my end to get this, to spit this out to me. So with that said, this is an approved program. And if you're following a program in the Playbook app, you should get off that program immediately and go into ChatGPT. See you guys in the next review.